Hello and welcome to Ace's Wednesday Whisky Workshop. Unfortunately, once again, I don't have any whiskey, but I did go online and grab a new microphone for the iPhone. I realized last week that although the sound sounded pretty good on the phone when I played it back and before I uploaded it, I realized when I got home that the sound wasn't ideal, so apologies for that, and hopefully this is better. This will be a gradual improvement. We'll invest in the production value as the dollars see fit, but the topic for today is, and it is actually one of the reasons I started doing this series, I often get requests or calls, messages both locally and from overseas. I've had calls from technicians in France, Germany, Korea, Japan, Canada, United States, to name a few, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and people call me, text me, message me, asking me for my thoughts or advice or opinions, and I'm quite happy to give my time, but I also started to think, well, perhaps there's an easier, more efficient way to do it, rather than a one-on-one conversation over Instagram or Skype or whatever. I can actually make a video and hopefully more people can benefit from the same amount of time invested. So recently I got not one but two calls on the Synesso Gen 2, and one specifically, a technician asked me, can you use group 4 of the Synesso board to replace an otherwise defunct channel on the board? And my immediate response was yes. And the Australian technician, went on to tell me, well, they called one of the importers and they said categorically no, Synesso has never made a 4-group machine. Now technically, that, if that was the exact statement, it's technically true, because a 4-group Synesso is generally made up of two groups bolted together. A 6-group Synesso, I've seen two now in my career. They're generally made up of 2-3 groups bolted together. So yes, technically they've not made a 4-group machine, probably. However, the Gen 2 board is and has always been a 4-group board, and that applies back into the Generation 1 machines. They had the Digmesa Quattro in the 4-group machines, or 3-group machines I should say, a 4-group board, and they had the Digmesa Duo for the 2-group machines. So technically they've always had a 4-group board. Now in his case, and like a case that I had almost 7 years ago to the date, in fact I told him about 7 years on the phone, and I went home, checked my records, and it was in fact 7 years and 7 days, to be honest. And I had the exact same situation. The discharge lines of the group valves had perished and failed. Espresso and drain water from the groups had poured into the chassis of the machine and then down into the control box, as they do. Now in the case of the Gen 2 machines, Synesso switched to a fairly generic Chinese-made relay in a clear case. I assume possibly for space reasons, but quite frankly they were a terrible relay. They were extremely noisy. They played havoc with these boards initially, and I was running around like a crazy man all over Sydney, replacing these terrible relays with the solid state relay, and we solved many noise issues with this board. However, where they were mounted, they were prone to, if the water leaked into the control box, it only took 5-6 millimeters of depth, quarter inch or so of water, and they would seep into the relays and you'd have all sorts of explosions. So I can't recall, I think this guy told me he'd lost group 1. So here we have group 1 pump output, group 2 pump output, group 3 and group 4, left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are simply switched by a triac, 1, 2, 3, 4 triacs, and they are in turn switched by an opto isolator, so optically isolated and separated within the range of about 3,500 volts protection between the high side and the low side electronics. So the CPU switches the optos switches the triac switches the pump, and the knee bone's connected to the blah blah blah. So let's say you've lost pump 1, you've blown this to the crap. We can repair it actually. If you send us back the board, we'll actually repair this circuitry for you. But if you're in a pinch and you need to get the customer going again, you can simply transfer pump 1 to pump 2, pump 2 to pump 3, pump 3 to pump 4. Just switch your outputs along left to right. Then bear in mind you have to swap all the other electronics to match. Now up here are your NTC thermistors. Group 1, they're in pairs. First pair is group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, steam. And I don't know if I ever knew what the 6th pair is for. If anybody knows, drop a comment in the comment section below. But that's the exception. Left to right, left to right. Now when we move down here, we've got the solenoid valves, outputs, and these are right to left. There is a diagram available. I'll try and post a link to it down in the comment section below. Here's your lever switches. I remember specifically the right hand side is 5 volts DC positive, and then that's switched out to the lever switches. Here is your elements, static or solid state relays I should say. I think there's 7 of those there, isn't there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, correct. So you've just got a common ground and your relay outputs, again left to right. Your flow sensors, you've got a 5 volt DC over here on the right, I think, ground over here on the left. One of my favourite things about the Synessos is they drive the flow sensors with 5 volts. That is one of the reasons you lose very few flow sensors in a Synesso, because they're only powering them with 5 volts. Same with the DigMesa boards from memory. I'll check that, but I'm pretty sure they've only always powered their flow sensors with 5 volts. So you've got 5 volts positive, ground negative here, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 flow sensors. So that's basically it. You've got your shot timer output here, 10-pin ribbon cable. We also connect to this to drive our sure shots. We can drive sure shots on the ribbon cable as well. Here's your touchpad connector, ribbon connector, and here is your umbilical cord out to the LCD control and touchpad. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Don't forget, you've got to swap all your inputs to match all your outputs, and then you have to go into the software, turn on group 1 and turn off the group that has failed on you. Probably you don't have to turn it off, but you might get an alarm such as the low water alarm, which is this one from memory. You might get a beeping or something on the board if you don't turn off the faulty group, because obviously you'll move the sensor along and it might give you some sort of alarm or error for the temperature sensor. So change all your inputs to match your new outputs. You'll have to move your solenoid valves across, move your inputs, your lever switches, your flow sensor, and your heating element to match whatever groups you've decided to use, whether it be 1, 2, and 4, or 1, 3, and 4, or whatever you choose to do, 3, 4, and 2, 3, and 4. Whatever you choose to do, make sure your inputs match your outputs. Change your software configurations. I'll get rid of that, sorry. That's just one of my shot timer testing boards. I've just reconfigured it as a couple of switches to simulate the low water probe and safety probe. Can't recall what's wrong with this board actually. I think somebody tried to save themselves some money, do an install, and applied 240 volts onto the lever switches. I can't see any damage there, but yeah, it's there's quite a few in our kit that have suffered that fate. Once again, if you want the pump outputs repaired, we can repair them. If not, you can either use that trick temporarily to get you out of trouble while you're waiting on a new board, or you can do it permanently. There's absolutely no reason why it can't work long term. In fact, the job that I did, I told them I could order them a new board if they wanted to, and they decided no. I went back to that job every 6 months, and I think 2.5 years until they sold the business, and it was still labelled groups 2, 3 and 4 from memory, and nobody really worried about it. Once again, if you like this format, please give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down. If you've got any comments, criticisms or questions, post it in the comments section below. And I will also provide a link to my Buy Me a Coffee, which in this case I'll buy myself a 2-ounce bottle of whiskey, and hopefully one day sit down here with a whiskey and go through whatever topic is on the cards at that time. Thanks for watching, and all the best. Cheers.